So in a meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, was asked a question about Trump's plan for Gaza, about relocating the Arabs living there. Have a watch of what he said.
Mr. Secretary,
Mr. about America involved in Gaza, considering your views and worldview?
I would just say to the question of Gaza, the definition of insanity is attempting to do the same thing over and over and over again. And as the President and Prime Minister pointed out last night, the President is willing to think outside the box, look for new and unique dynamic ways to solve problems that have felt like they're intractable. So we look forward to more conversations about that, creative solutions to that. And as the man tasked with leading the Defense Department here, we're prepared to look at all options, as we've said.
Mr. Secretary,
Mr. Secretary, do you have a plan to send troops to Gaza?
Are you working on options for the president right now that would involve U.S. troops in Gaza?
The president is involved in very complex and high-level negotiations of great consequence to both the United States and the State of Israel, and we look forward to working with our allies, our counterparts, both diplomatically and militarily, to look at all options. But we certainly would not get ahead of the president or provide any details about what we may or may not do. That's just bad military.
It's really good to hear him say this, because I've been using this line over and over and over again when talking about the two-state solution, which is that the definition of insanity, as he says, is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. The hypothesis of the two-state solution is that what the Arabs, the Palestinians, so-called Palestinians, want is self-determination, is their own state. And then the problem goes away. That's your solution. But it's based on a falsehood. And this is not a falsehood that I'm just hypothesizing about. This is what history has literally told us. It's what recent history has told us. It's what the leaders tell us. It's what the population of Gaza and Judea and Samaria tell us, the Arabs, which is that they do not care about self-determination or a state. They care about getting rid of Israel, any Jewish sovereignty on this plot of land. That's what it's always been about. They couldn't care less about having their own self-determination, their own government, their own flag. They're not interested in that. And people that keep insisting that's what this is all about, it's just they're so attached to this plot of land. If they're so attached to the plot of land, then why have they been saying, we don't want to leave Gaza, this is our home? I thought your home was in mainland Israel. And you're saying we're going to go back there. Now you're saying, no, Gaza really is your home. The whole thing is about an ideological hatred. It's always been that way. Since Haj Amin al-Husseini, the first leader of the Palestinians, before they were even called the Palestinians. No, they wouldn't. You should know they were referred to as the Arabs when the land was proposed to be split in the 30s and in the 40s, up until the 60s, really. And Arabs are not indigenous to this plot of land. They come from Arabia. And yes, they've been living there for many, many centuries, but they're not attached to some kind of unique identity of this place. They see themselves as Arabs and would have been happy to be part of another Arab country that would have controlled them. And we've seen this because they never called for a Palestinian state when Jordan and Egypt were controlling parts of the territory from the 40s to the 60s. We know this because Egypt said that they don't want to let in Gazans, but they said Israel should move them into the Negev. Well, why can't they host them in the Sinai desert? It's not about concern for nationalism. It's not about empathy. What it's about is a cause to try and get rid of Israel. And for people that don't want to understand this, it's actually, in my mind, a form of extremism. It's a willingness to see more bloodshed because you're not prepared to face up to some hard truths. If you keep insisting that, no, they just want statehood, then you're going to keep calling for Israel to surrender, to move back, and then they'll plot more attacks to attack Israel because they don't want statehood, they just want to get rid of Israel and the Jews. And then the cycle goes on and on and on and on and on. It's actually evil, supporting the kind of same tired old solutions. People are just scared to face reality. And the reality is that this is a cause that represents modern-day Nazism. Simply about wanting to get rid of the Jewish people's safety, security, prosperity, and sovereignty in their ancient homeland. And so actually, relocation it may seem like a strong measure, it may seem extreme, but the Arab position has been extreme. Had they chosen to live in peace, side by side with Israel, things could have been great. But they didn't. They've chosen war, they've chosen bloodshed, and so what's the most humane option is, if they're simply not going to have an ideological change, is to say, okay, so let's move you to other parts of the Arab world. You yourself consider yourselves Arabs. The Arab world should take you in if they really do care about you. And you can live in peace where you don't feel as if you're at the forefront of some war against the Jews, which will inevitably happen if you continue to be given autonomy in Gaza. So it actually may seem strong and inhumane to some people who aren't prepared to actually just get to grips with the facts, but actually it's the most humane move. I can't think of any alternative to this plan. And for people that say, no, well, I'm pro-Israel, but I just can't get behind this, they have a right to be in this land. I'm sorry. We've tried for 100 years to give them their right to be in this land and to live alongside the Jews. And time again, their leadership, and it seems like a huge amount of support among the population, has been for anti-Semitism, extremism. There's been no real... name me one leader, one figurehead even, that's a genuine cause for peace. And before people say, well, they're just surrounded by so much fear and terror, no peaceful people can stick their head up. Maybe true to some extent, but at the end of the day, that's the reality then. And we have to apply some moral agency to these people. There have been resistance movements in history that have risen up against autocracies, and they've represented the masses and said, we want a different way. We don't see that in the Palestinian population. There's too much bigotry of low expectations. I refuse to believe that if this was, God forbid, the Jewish people were in such a situation, we had our own government being so tyrannical and evil and disgraceful, there would be a rebellion. I believe that. We hold the people of Gaza and the Arabs in Judea and Samaria, the Palestinians, as they wish to be known, we hold them to far too low standards. And now it's time for reality of their actions and their choices, and real accountability to finally kick in. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.